I vow to serve with an intensity of purpose worthy to the Guardian Force.
There were no weekends at the Academy. Sometimes it was hard for YAHSHI to believe there were days at all. With the schedule so monotonous, sleeping felt like taking a nap, a brief pause in one never-ending cycle. As he trudged down the dimly lit hallway, his eyelids drooped and his steps faltered. He struggled to keep pace with Pinto, whose lanky frame glided effortlessly through the air.
Why do you look so tired? Your eye bags are getting darker every day.
Every day? How many days has it been, even?
It's day 14.
There's no way we're 2 weeks in.
We are. I've been counting.
That means our first matches are tomorrow, aren't they?
That's right. And perhaps you would have remembered the filtration if you've been getting enough sleep. You realize how irresponsible it is to stay up past the night bell, right? With a schedule like ours, we need rest for our bodies.
Just so you know, it's your snoring that's been keeping me up.
My what?
Your snoring.
I do not snore, YAHSHI.
How would you know?
You're unbearable, you know that?
YAHSHI smiled. It was during moments like these when he felt like himself again. Pinto didn't know about his involvement in the incident or his obsessive investigation that followed. He knew a simpler version of YAHSHI, the boy from before Chima's murder, and it was refreshing. But soon enough they were always back in the lecture hall, the lab, or the training room, back in the program, and YAHSHI couldn't play the role of an ordinary 15-year-old anymore. The roommates parted ways in the lecture hall, and YAHSHI took his assigned seat.
Morning, SUNNA.
Good morning.
You look happy.
I may have spent the entire night perfecting my personal essay.
He pulled a stack of pages out of his book bag.
Wow. That is a lot of writing.
11 pages. And I had to shorten it too. Where to begin with a prompt like that, right?
YAHSHI hesitated to retrieve his essay. After spending 3 days of recreation time agonizing over every sentence, he had completed the assignment with pride. But SUNNA's effortless paper of greater length instilled YAHSHI with doubt about the quality of his own work. The bell rang, and all 20 trainees stood in unison.
I pledge my allegiance to the McCoy Empire.
As they took their seats, Professor EMBRE crossed her arms.
I hope you remembered that your first assignment is due this morning.
Trainees rushed to pull out their personal essays, and the room filled with the rapid crinkling of pages. The noise subsided once everyone had an assignment in hand. YAHSHI noticed that his paper appeared to be the shortest.
The prompt for this personal essay was for you to write about why you want to become a guardian. Now, before you turn your paper in, I want you to think about whether the reasons stated on your paper justify the grueling efforts this program demands.
YAHSHI read his first sentence.
I want to become a guardian so I can protect the VELL Empire and the values that it stands for.
His words held no weight, and he knew it.
By now, you're familiar with the daily schedule and the work required for you to stay. You're 2 weeks in, and there are 76 weeks left to go. So, can you handle this? Because if you don't believe that you're selection material, why the hell should we?
Professor EMBRE pointed to the door.
If you have even the slightest hesitation, I encourage you to leave right now. Your family and hometown have already received one payment, and that alone is something to be proud of.
YAHSHI raised his hand.
Yes, YAHSHI?
I thought we could filter ourselves any time before completing 9 months in the program.
That's correct. But today I'm opening the door for you, just to make that decision easier. We understand that there are many external pressures to stay in the program, but you shouldn't feel trapped here. It's not shameful to leave.
Her words were sweet, like those of a siren luring sailors to their demise with a beautiful tune. Walking through that doorway would result in a lifelong sentence of mediocrity. Returning to Citra meant going back to the same life YAHSHI had come here to escape, selling bread in the market and falling behind in school, with no career path and no spectacular dreams.
I wonder why that doesn't sound so bad.
A boy in the second row stood from his seat, drawing the attention of his classmates. The papers in his hand were folded in half, as though he were afraid someone might read them.
Professor, I'd like to leave.
His words sparked an uproar.
Now? Really?
Thanks a lot, Rugen.
Wonderful timing.
Guys, calm down.
Professor Ember stomped her boot against the floor, and the room went quiet. She returned her gaze to Rugen.
Very well. I'll get the door for you. A guardian is waiting in the common room to escort you home.
YAHSHI found it interesting that the Guardians had already made preparations. When Professor Ember opened the door for Rugen, Limbo stood, slamming his palms against his desk.
Don't you dare leave, Rugen!
Pinto stood next.
Wait a few days at least.
Rugen held his head low as he rushed out of the lecture room, taking his folded essay with him. His footsteps echoed from the hallway. YAHSHI couldn't recall much about Rugen, not his hometown, favorite class, or roommate. But he did remember how he would sit alone in the dining hall, fall asleep during lessons, and avoid eye contact with anyone who looked his way. He had been slipping, and now he was gone.
Anyone else?
YAHSHI thought of Alora's yellow mittens, tucked away in his drawer. He thought of the woods and of Chima. He thought of what it might be like to serve in the Force someday, dressed in the same uniform as Cal, working for the same cause. A chill ran down his spine.
What an idiot!
Hey, we all saw it coming.
But not this soon!
What am I thinking? I'd be a coward to leave this early into the program.
Professor Ember closed the door, and YAHSHI sighed. Life was easier without excessive questioning, and besides, he'd grown used to the routine. If he could handle 2 weeks, despite how challenging it'd been, perhaps he really could handle another 76. Professor Ember made rounds throughout the room to collect their personal essays. She took SUNNA's paper with a smile, which she dropped before taking YAHSHI's. He longed for her to acknowledge him, to tell him that he was on the right track, but she returned to her desk without a glance.
Today we'll be reviewing the events that led to the Atheris War. Obviously, the Eastern raids forced us to take down the Eastern Empire. But what led them to raid us in the first place?
YAHSHI scrambled for his notebook and pencil. He had sat through many lectures covering the same topic before, but he still wrote until his hand cramped up. He couldn't risk forgetting even the smallest of details. With Rugen gone and 19 trainees remaining, it finally sunk in that most of them wouldn't make the final 5. Getting selected was only a warm-up for the battle ahead. YAHSHI took a sip of beet juice and cringed at the bitter taste. He set his glass down.
Okay, what's wrong?
Nothing.
Pinto had been silent all lunch, responding with 1 or 2 words at a time. Not wanting to pry, YAHSHI left it at that. After sparring practice with Commander Roz and a horseback riding lesson in the field, Pinto vanished. YAHSHI ate supper alone and later walked in on his roommate hurling a textbook at the wall. Pinto grunted when the book struck the ground as though he'd taken the fall instead.
Really, Pinto?
He shut the door behind him.
What's wrong?
Oh, everything's wrong.
Pinto plopped onto his bed and ran a hand through his curls.
Rugen just took off and left this morning.
That's what you're upset about? He was miserable in the program. He didn't belong here.
Exactly. He was dead weight, the weakest link. If he had slugged himself through another day, one lucky trainee would have had an easy match tomorrow. But now we all have to fight our hearts out. Except for QUAX, I guess.
That's what the fuss was about this morning? It's not Rugen's responsibility to give us an easy match.
Of course not. It's just unfortunate, okay? The smaller our group gets, the more competitive the program becomes.
You're taking this a bit too seriously.
Well, if you were in my shoes, you'd understand.
What's that supposed to mean?
This is more than a game to me. I'm not here to just give this a good go. Being a guardian is all I've dreamed of. It's the only fulfilling career path I can imagine for myself. And I don't have a backup plan. Without a spot on the Force, what would I do then?
YAHSHI saw something in Pinto that he couldn't find in himself, and it left him speechless.
Sorry. I'm being ridiculous, aren't I? Acting bitter isn't going to fix anything.
No, it's okay. You're not the only one who's been frustrated.
But it's the frustrated trainees like Rugen who get filtered first. I need to pull myself together.
You're fine.
No, I'm not. I'm slipping.
You're not slipping.
He was arguing more for himself than for his roommate, as part of him had wanted to leave that morning too. Pinto opened his mouth, but no words came out. He reached for the notebook on his nightstand to write instead of talk. His pencil rolled across the page in a smooth, endless flow.
You've been writing in that book every day.
I've decided to document my time with the Academy.
But you have a perfect memory.
Pinto's pencil paused over the page.
It's not for me.
He shook his head before resuming. YAHSHI considered asking whom it was for, but decided against it.
I'm heading to the library to study. Would you like to join me?
I think I'll sleep early.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay. Well, good night then.
He left room 4 and entered the lobby in unison with SUNNA, who was holding a stack of folded uniforms.
Oh, hey, YAHSHI. You caught me. I'm moving out.
Moving out? Like, you're leaving?
No, not like that. There's only 18 guys left, so I'm reassigned to room 3 with Limbo. You know, Rugen's old roommate.
Oh, of course.
It's getting late. What are you up to?
I was planning to catch up on some medical reading.
Darts?
What?
Do you want to throw darts?
SUNNA gestured to a target with his eyes.
Sure.
After delivering the stack of uniforms to his new room, SUNNA returned to the lobby and plucked a dart from a tin can. He stood across from the nearest wall target and threw his first dart, which struck one of the outer rims. With a smirk, he faced YAHSHI.
Your turn.
YAHSHI threw a dart next. It struck one rim closer to the red bullseye than SUNNA's had.
Nice one!
SUNNA grabbed another dart and stepped aside, lining himself across from an empty target.
So, how are you liking the Academy so far?
I'm not sure if like is the right word.
How are you loving the Academy so far?
YAHSHI chuckled as SUNNA threw his second dart.
Ooh, bullseye!
Does that mean you automatically win?
I think so.
I guess we're tied now.
Looks like it.
This might be a close match.
Let's hope we're not paired up in the filtration, too.
He broke eye contact and began to toss a dart from hand to hand.
How are you feeling about the first phase? Are you ready?
I'm not sure if ready is the right word.
Are you excited?
No, not really.
YAHSHI had a feeling something was bothering him, so he took a seat and waited.
Hey, you know what's odd?
What?
I think QUAX and KEIYO love the program. Everything about it. The training, the studying, the competition. It's got them hooked.
How about you?
I enjoy some parts. Just scattered pieces here and there. Do you think that's wrong?
Why would it be?
Because Rugen didn't love the program, and now he's gone.
The next day, every trainee except QUAX gathered by the sparring range. YAHSHI stood beside Dice and recalled how Pinto and QUAX had revealed them to be converts during their first research lesson. He had been so upset that he practically ignored Dice during medical class and declined his invitation to sit with him for lunch.
Hey, Dice?
What?
I'm sorry if I was rude to you.
It's fine. You shouldn't enjoy your time here anyway.
Why not?
The bell rang, and Commander Roz interrupted their conversation.
This filtration will consist of 3 phases, spaced 3 days apart. For each phase, you will have 1 sparring opportunity. If you fail to win a match after 3 phases, you will be filtered from the program.
He readied his stopwatch.
Today, we have 9 matches scheduled, starting with YAHSHI KONYA and KEIYO PICKETT. Please enter the sparring range.
Here we go.
He walked onto the green zone, dreading what he knew would be a difficult match. He had seen KO transform into a different person during defense lessons, skilled in both technique and strength. YAHSHI was confident that the click of Commander Roz's stopwatch would transform the deep-dimpled jokester into nothing but a ruthless weapon with a brain.
You may begin.
But instead, the click of the stopwatch morphed KO into the image of Chima, bloody and bashed. YAHSHI could hear Kal's voice as though she were standing next to him, muttering into his ear.
Hit him, YAHSHI. What are you waiting for?
But he's already bleeding.
He needs to know he can't win.
You went too far.
I did what I had to do. And so should you. To stay in the program, you need to win.
Maybe I don't want to win.
Either you win, or you end up like him.
Oof.
A punch to YAHSHI's face left him reeling. When he raised his stinging chin, KO was back. With each attack from KO came a swift dodge from YAHSHI. He waited for a chance to reverse the momentum, but KO drilled on relentlessly. It was only a matter of time before the constant ducks and dodges wore on him, and he could no longer evade. He started to block KO's punches, sending shocks of pain through his arms. KO bypassed one of YAHSHI's weakening blocks and kicked him in the gut. YAHSHI lost balance. His back slammed against the sparring range floor, and he grunted as KO pinned him down. He punched YAHSHI with a force that left him wishing he'd landed in the black zone. When YAHSHI tried to wiggle free, KO struck him again.
KO, stop!
Despite SUNNA's plea, KO continued. A third hit made YAHSHI's face burn, and the pressure on his chest left him struggling to breathe.
I can't win. It's over.
Another hit.
That's enough!
While the matches continued, YAHSHI iced his face alone in the infirmary, a bland room across the lab on the 5th floor. Inside were 3 beds, an ice chest, and endless cabinets stocked with medical supplies. He was sitting on the edge of a bed, shivering in silence, when Professor EMBRE entered the room.
YAHSHI, I finished your paper.
She dragged a chair in front of him and took a seat.
To be frank, it's repetitive and generic. I expected more from you.
I'm sorry, Professor.
Don't apologize. Fix it.
She tossed the papers at his lap.
You have 3 days. I want you to write me a new paper with the same prompt. And if it's not up to my standards, we're sending you home.
You mean I'll get filtered?
Being a guardian is not something you fall into out of circumstance. Even an ounce of hesitation will destroy you in our field of work. You need to want this, fully and truly. There is no space for regret. So you need to really dig, YAHSHI. You need to dig, and you need to find a reason why you bleed to stay here.
She leaned forward, casting a shadow over him.
So, rewrite this. And if it's not rewritten well, we'll know that you were never selection material in the first place. Because unlike what Roz may have told you, sometimes we do make mistakes.
Belladonna, Book 1, Nightshade Academy. Written and narrated by Torrefranca. Produced by Torrefranca and Wilson Hensley. Edited and mastered by Juan Pablo Diaz.
How did we get here? Something went wrong. We worked hard for this life that we don't want at all.
Cover art by Mad Studio. Score by Gita Puspita Asri. Theme song composed and produced by James Sinclair-Stott. Starring Jason Brown, Anthony Andreas Echeverri, Philip Kryanov, Melissa White, Alex Bowie, Patrick Vierzba, Julia Ristow, David John Bors, Connor Blunck, Kody Kiehl, Ellie Chua, Ben Autry, Walter Mack.
If it's really true that the sky weeps with us, if it's really true that heroes live in stars.
Featuring the voices of Gwyneth Evans, Jeff Rosenau, Lucas Hensley, Levi Titus, Angie Eggers, Willem Degar, Allison Prophet, Maria Palmo. Nightshade Academy is produced in association with Lost Island Press.
If it's really true, if it's really true. you.